Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Rombauer Hour. Tonight, our show is all about one of the most important aspects of winemaking, and that is barrels. My name is Rich Allen. I'm the Vice President of Viticulture and Winemaking, and I am joined by a couple of the usual suspects. Gentlemen, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Luke Clayton. I'm the winemaker here, and next to me.
Yep, Andrew Holloway, Associate Winemaker. And something that's real important is barrels. And really, every wine we produce, a big component of it is oak barrels.
Or a small component.
Or a small component. I mean, even the small component is actually a large component.
Very good, Andrew.
But I mean, and even to the Sauvignon Blanc, we age some in neutral oak barrels.
So a small component.
Well, a small component, but it rounds out the mouthfeel and really gives it that creaminess on the palate that impacts the final wine.
Yeah, but that's
a
great.
nice impact
That's
on the
great.
mouthfeel.
We were talking about SB today. As
Well,
you see, there's no SB on the table.
Yes, Luke. What wines are we going to try tonight?
Well, we got the classic 2019 Canera Chardonnay. We got the 2019 Proprietors Selection here, and as you see, it's in magnums. We only got magnums left, and a couple of 3 liters, and then we have the 2018 Napa Valley Cabernet. We use barrels in.
Yeah, well, and we picked these wines specifically tonight because all of these wines, a component of them that makes them what they are is the influence of barrels and how we use them in the winery. So we're going to take you through how we use the barrels, the difference between the barrels we use and the impact they have on the wine. But before you do anything else, it's time to fill up your glass. So if you haven't already done so, pull a cork and have a glass. And before we go a little bit further, about a week ago, I took a little tour of one of our local cooperages that supplies us a number of barrels, and that was Demtos Cooperage. So we're going to show you a little video now of how barrels are made and why we love using them. Hi guys, I'm Rich Allen, the Vice President of Viticulture and Winemaking for Rombauer Vineyards, and today we're here at Demtos Napa Cooperage, and I'm joined by David Ronconi.
Welcome, welcome.
So Demtos is one of our main barrel suppliers, but could you give us a little bit of a history of Demtos, how it got here, and what do you guys do?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Demtos Cooperage was originally established back in Bordeaux in 1825, so we're going to be celebrating 200 years here pretty soon. We established the Napa portion of the cooperage in 1982. Will Jameson, who is our master cooper and our managing partner, is still here with us today. Yeah, great guy. And so we'd love to give you the opportunity to take a look and see what we do here at Demtos. So follow me inside.
Let's go on in. So David, this is the first step in the barrel making process, the raising the barrel. What's going on here? What are these and what are these guys doing?
Yeah, so here we do all of the processing of our staves at our mills, either in Missouri or in France. So we receive the staves ready for building.
Yeah.
So here we're going to go ahead and take these staves and build what's called the rosette. This is approximately 1 barrel worth, but as you see back here, we're going to go ahead and shift staves in and out to make sure we get the perfect circumference around the head of the barrel that will give us the proper volume for that barrel. Once they've got the production hoops running, the rosette will go in to be toasted.
All right, let's go see that.
Come on, let's go this way.
Okay, so David, now that we've raised the barrel, it comes in here and this is where 2 important processes happen. Can you tell our viewers what's going on in here today?
Yeah, so here in the toasting room, this is where we're going to start the process of really prepping that barrel for bending first and then toasting. So we'll usually take the barrel, we'll take the rosette, and then we'll spray it with a little bit of water because we need steam. Steam is what will allow the bending of the barrel without cracking of the staves. So we'll then take the barrels, put them over. These are the warming fires.
These fires here.
So these ones are strictly for warming.
Yeah.
So we want to get the barrel temperature up. So once we go over the bend, the bending process, we want to make sure there's just enough moisture in the barrel and the barrel's nice and hot so we can get an even and very consistent bend without risk of breaking.
So from a winemaking perspective, this is probably the most important part, how we get the flavor in the barrel. And so Demtos, everything's a fire toasted barrel. So explain to them what toasting does and how long it takes to toast a barrel.
And so toasting is really is an artistry here. We've got Joaquin here who's been here for over 15 years with the cooperage, and it's something he does does every day. It's the process of allowing a nice consistent toasting of the barrel from top to bottom. With these fires being so hot, it's very easy to get kind of inconsistencies in the toasting. It takes a very skilled eye and a lot of understanding of how that barrel is going to toast. As you can see, he's moving the barrel, switching it upside down every few minutes to get a nice, even, consistent toast over everything. As you can see here, we utilize open fire toasting. You can do water bending, you can do steam bending. We find that this gives us the best overall flavor and aromatics for making those beautiful Rombauer wines.
And so when it's finished, this is what it looks like. And so you can smell, and that smells like freshly baked bread with a little bit of vanilla and spice. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
I wanted to see how we get that bung hole in the barrel, because that is an amazing process.
Absolutely. Let's head on over and take a look.
So now we've got the toasted barrel, we've got to be able to fill it with wine. So they want to cut a bung hole. And so that's what's happening here. So explain to them what the bung hole is, how it's treated to make sure that it's sterile.
Absolutely. So if you notice here on the barrel, the bung is where we will fill and drain the barrel. So it's very important that we've got a nice consistent seal. So you can see here we're drilling the bung. You notice it's not just a hole, it's got a taper to it. That's very important for allowing us to make sure we've got a good hermetic seal on the bung. So the next thing that we're going to do is we have a very, very hot iron. So we've got a very hot iron, and we're going to go out and cauterize that bung. So by cauterizing it, we've got that hot piece of metal that will give us a perfectly round hole that makes it sure, again, that hermetic seal that is ideal for you in the winemaking site.
Let's go see how they get the heads on the barrel. So David, we've bent the barrel, it's been toasted, we've cut the bung hole and cauterized it, now we've got to get the head on. So what happens here, and how do we get from this rough barrel to this finished crows here?
Absolutely, yeah. So this next part is called cutting the crows. So the crows is the portion of the barrel where the head fits into the sides. And so we want to make sure we get a nice tight fit so that we don't have any issues with leaking, right? So we'll cut this with a specialty blade, this machine back behind us here, and it'll cut what's called the chamfer here on the outside and on the inside, as well as the crows all at one time. So this chamfer allows us to fit the head in very easily, and it just allows the head to be sucked in during the fitting process.
All right, I want to go see him put a head on, because that's quite an art form, and I know it's hard because I've done it myself.
Absolutely.
So let's go see him put some heads on these barrels.
Absolutely, let's go.
So we've got the finished barrel here, we've got the cut head, and he's going to go and he's going to put this head straight on.
So it's really important to get a head that fits exactly perfectly, because any little gaps or holes can be a big problem when you put wine in it.
And so once that head's on, they put the hoops on and we go off to finishing. So they sand the barrel, we make it look pretty, so the winemakers are happy.
Exactly. With wine barrels, so we'll do the final fitting of the hoops. You can see back over here. We'll fit the hoops to every barrel, and each hoop is specific for that barrel. So it's a very labor-intensive part of the process, but allows us to get a nice watertight seal and make sure the barrel is going to have nice structural stability.
All right, let's go see that finished barrel getting lasered.
Absolutely, let's go.
So David, this is the end, right? So we've been through the bending, the fire toasting, sanding, fitting heads. Now, most important part, what happens here?
Absolutely, no barrel is ready to go until it's got that Rombauer logo on it. So here we've got a high intensity laser. We can go ahead and do the logo. It actually happens very quickly. As you can see, we've got here on the computer that beautiful, beautiful Rombauer logo. Hopefully you've seen this on your table many, many times.
Just a couple.
We'll go ahead and start the process of lasering. It's really cool to watch. Hope you like it.
So now the barrel's been lasered, it's been wrapped, it comes in here, final stage in the warehouse. How many barrels can we hold in here?
Yeah, we get right around 5,000 barrels or so in this warehouse. We start doing shipments usually around August and into September in preparation for harvest, where they're going to be filled with your amazing Rombauer wine.
Well, David, thank you so much. Guys, that's Demtos Napa Cooperage. Thanks for joining us.
What a great explanation. Literally, it takes me back. The aromas in that, in the barrel room, the toasting room, I can smell them right now.
Yeah, I love that.
It's incredible. I mean, even though I wasn't privileged enough to go on the tour.
No,
on
you
that
were not
time.
privileged enough, no. I think one of the things I love the most about a barrel is what people don't realize is there's no glue or nails or anything. It's literally the pressure of the hoops that holds the barrel together. And I had so much fun on that tour, which I've done quite a few times. We've got David Ranconi
Well, thank you so much for having me.
here to join us.
Yeah, really happy to be here. It's it's fun because I've worked with all you guys over the years, various times, and it's such an honor to be associated with the Rombauer name. Just fantastic wines that you're making over here.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And so, how long have you been at Demtos?
So this is actually coming up on my 7th harvest with Demtos. It's fun. The barrel side, as you mentioned, it's got a great impact on wine. So I get to be associated with what you guys get to do and get to drink these wonderful wines as well.
Yeah,
And
no, it's
obviously, like, we use both French and American oak, and they're pretty different. How would you describe the difference between the French oak barrels we get from Demtos and the American oak barrels?
Yeah, the best way that I like to think about French and American oak, because there's a lot of opinions. Think of them as different tools, right? As a winemaker, it's really important that you have different ways to impact wine, and not every wine will really need the same barrels. So to kind of distill it down to its most kind of basic parts, typically American oak gives you a lot of these really beautiful aromatics, but structurally it doesn't bring as much structure to the table as, say, French oak. Whereas
Because it's the wood's inherently lower in tannin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So being that our American oak coming from Missouri and then French oak coming from various forests around the center of France, there will be slightly different, just kind of minimal differences in the way that wood will impact the wine. So French oak, kind of on the other side, will give you a lot of structure. It's really beautiful for filling out mid-palate and really creating a nice kind of balanced tannic impact. Whereas French oak will kind of be a little bit more subtle on the aromatics. A little bit darker, a little bit more spicy to it compared to American oak. So.
Yeah, that's great. But, I've got another analogy too. Like, American oak's like Andrew here, just big and broad and muscly. Well, I'm the French oak. I got the six-pack, the finesse, the structure. And
this guy, the marathon runner.
So what am I, Slovakian oak or something?
Hungarian would do.
that six-pack's still in the cooler.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously the American oak's less tannic, French oak's more tannic, but American oak's also much higher in vanillin and lactone, so it gives us more of a vanilla. If it's really coconutty, I mean, you think about bourbon. Bourbon uses 2 years in new American white oak, whereas French oak, it's lower in vanilla, it's higher in eugenol, so it's going to be spicier, it's higher in tannin, it's going to give you more structure to the wine and depth. So, and I think the other interesting thing about American and French oak is American oak, you get a much higher yield per log. So an American oak tree is 50, 60 years of sort of maximum age before they start to rot out. You cut it down, you get a log, and you can quarter saw it and then saw the staves. Whereas French oak reaches maturity at about 100 years, up to 200 years. And those logs, you have to split along the grain. You can't saw them, so you get a much lower yield per tree.
Absolutely.
Why do you have to split them?
So you have to split them. American oak has tyloses in it, which plugs the grain so it doesn't leak, whereas French oak doesn't have that. And if you saw it across the grain, the barrel will actually leak. And so that different molecular structure of the wood gives you a much lower yield, which is why I would like to think French oak is significantly more expensive, because you get less barrels per tree.
Yeah, we won't go into the molecular structure or anything crazy
right
right now. But the other big impact that oak has, and not just red wines, but white wines as well, is that not just leaking, but the other way of oxygen coming into the barrel. And so it's a big impact as well. Especially on red wines when they spend longer time in there. They're softening that wine by oxidizing slowly.
So French oak, on average, would be on average.
We're talking generalities,
grain, right? And winemakers always talk about grain tightness, and that has an impact on the quality. And what we know about grain tightness is the tighter the grain, the more porous the wood. So the more grains it has, the more pores in the wood, so you get a higher oxidation rate. But what's really interesting, it's the flip when it comes to flavor. The tighter the grain, the harder it is to get it out of the barrel. So a coarse grain barrel is going to give you a much higher flavor impact, but a slower oxidation rate.
And it's going to give that flavor quicker.
It's going to get that flavor quicker, whereas a very tight grain barrel, you can leave it in there longer and you have less of a barrel impact, but you have a much higher oxidation rate, and so the wine softens more quickly. And now that we've bored the crap out of you talking about barrels, we should probably talk about some wine.
Yes, first off, the classic Chardonnay, classic Carnera Chardonnay. The barrels in this one play a big role.
It's sort of like one of the signatures of the wine. I'm going to have a little bit more.
It's very hot out here today. We're a bit parched. So
It's only 103.
Yeah, that's not bad. It's cooled down.
yeah, it's good.
But I mean, the big component of this is it's completely barrel fermented.
Yeah.
So every portion of this goes into the barrel to ferment. So basically, after we bring in the fruit and we determine what lots are ripe, and we're really judging those lots, you know, when we're bringing in the samples to the lab, making sure what quality level we think the wines are going to be. And
So
what
you're tasting the grapes or the juice?
the grapes and the juice, to try to determine what we think is going to be the best, especially on the oak level, what barrels are going to match the profile the best. And not only does it come from taste, but it also comes from working with these same vineyards year in, year out for multiple years. I mean, most of them I've been working with since I've been here, and that's been 11 years. I mean, so it's not short term.
You think you know what you're doing by now, right?
No, I every year is a surprise.
So when
I hedge my bets.
So when that juice rolls in, so I'll be out in the vineyard, I'll call a pick, I'll be like, Andrew, you know, this particular block we're picking has really high quality, it has these flavors, it turns up to you at the winery as juice.
Yep.
You taste it. What drives your decision making for choosing whether you want more French oak or more American oak and the age of the oak in the wine?
Well, I think inherently it's don't screw it up.
That'd be nice, because if you screw it up, you won't have a job.
Yeah. No, but generally, I think, you know, vineyards that tend to play towards, you know, citrus profiles, less ripe fruit profiles.
Yep.
I tend to gravitate towards French oak. You know, lower impact on aromatics.
Yep.
It's not overpowering the vineyards. Whereas those richer, more textural wines that can really handle those big oak impacts from American oak.
Yeah.
I mean, they're perfect complements. It's like having, you know, a big, ripe, juicy pear, or, you know, a subtle lemon lime pie. You don't want to overpower it. So it's figuring out what flavor profiles you want to hedge your bets on with your oak. So when it comes in, I basically, you know, try to hedge my bets with the oak that I'm choosing to make the best wine that we can see, and we do that through a combination of about a third new oak, a third second fill, and a third fill. So it's basically just after that first fill, the second year it goes into fill, it has about half the oak compounds, components, and impact onto the wine, basically. And so you're getting half that flavor each year you use it, to where about the fourth year it's neutral. And that's where we really just want the texture of the wine played with without that oak impact.
So when you smell the wine, if you've got the classic Chardonnay at home, and you stick your nose in the glass, I mean, the first thing you're going to smell is ripe peach, lime, citrus, a little bit of melon. But behind that, there's going to be this incredible spice, which is coming from the French oak, and a bit of vanilla.
Yeah.
And it's a very subtle vanilla. It's a warm vanilla. It's not like a coconut, because we don't use low quality American oak. We only use the highest quality Demtos American oak, and that lends that subtle vanilla flavor to the wine as well as the spice.
And it complements it perfectly. I mean, you see, because this has enough fruit impact to stand up to that oak, that each one complements it to where you see different layers each time you go back to it.
So David, you're at the cooperage. I call up, I order barrels. What fun facts can you tell us about when Rombauer orders barrels? I don't know how to describe that.
There's so many fun facts. Well, one of the things Rombauer does is they put a huge emphasis on seasoning.
Yep.
I know you guys typically are looking for 36 months, sometimes even 48 month.
Minimum 36.
Yeah. And that's it's a huge impact on the quality of the barrel and the quality of the wine. So when we talk about open air seasoning, we're talking about basically exposing that wood after being cut into essentially like 2x4 type looking planks.
Yeah.
Exposing that wood to open air.
Yeah, and so it's seasoned for a minimum of 3 years.
Exactly, and that essentially kind of washes out a lot of the impurities. I always say, if you've ever had a really bottom of the barrel bourbon, that would be an example of a kiln dried American
and
oak.
It has that green coconut,
resiny,
green banana, resiny flavor.
It's really not very pleasant, and so the idea is that during the seasoning process, we're essentially going to purify that wood to a certain extent, and so the more you season, the more you extract any of those sugars or any of those flavors that you don't necessarily want impacting your wine.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at a grape like Chardonnay, it's a big grape, but it's also a very delicate grape as well, and you can very easily start to overpower some of the beautiful fruit characteristics as you start to throw oak on it.
Yeah.
And so by going towards that 36 month or 48 month of open air seasoning, you're going to get a much more elegant approach to that barrel seasoning process.
Where is that happening? I mean, I know, but the people at home, they don't know.
So we do all of our seasoning for our American oak. It's all going to be seasoned in Missouri. We've got one single mill that we work with out there, creating just
shout out to Don McGinnis.
There you go, Don McGinnis. Yes. But just doing a beautiful job of creating a nice consistency barrel to barrel. And as a winemaker, I know consistency is a huge thing for you. And then all of our French oak would be seasoned in the same place in Bordeaux.
Yeah.
All of the wood would be seasoned in 1 yard. It's about 1.5 acres worth of wood.
I know the yard well.
Yes. And then another fun fact, also to mention, one thing I know is very important for Rombauer, important for Demtos as well, is sustainability.
Yeah.
And so typically when barrels are sent out from our facility, they'll be wrapped up with a bunch of cellophane and cardboard, and it's a lot of waste. And so over the years, we've been able to develop a great relationship with you guys and find ways to cut back on that. And so we deliver the barrels unwrapped, and basically we get them to the facility and they're filled pretty quickly. So cutting down on as much of that trash and plastic waste that otherwise would be going into a landfill somewhere.
Can I tell you a funny story about that, which I just remembered? When I first started at Rombauer as an intern, and I used to do pump overs straight ahead over here, and we had one loading dock, and every day a little Penske rental truck would turn up, and there'd be this Scottish guy driving it, and I would help him unload these brand new unwrapped barrels that would get delivered every day, and we'd fill them with Chardonnay. And it was a crazy Scottish guy. We got to know each other really well. And at the end of the harvest, I went down to do a tour, 2004, first ever time in a cooperage. I'm like, oh wow, the truck driver's doing the tour of the cooperage. There's this crazy Scottish guy. At the end of the tour, he gave me his card because I was going to England, and he goes, if you want to go up to Scotland and taste whiskey, give me a call. I get his card, it says, Will Jamison, managing partner of Master Cooper. I'm like, I thought he was just the truck driver.
Yeah, that's a classic Will story. He realized very early that if he outworks every one of his employees, they've got no excuse to be lazy. So that's the way he does it.
Fantastic. Well, we probably should move on to the next wine.
The proprietor.
The big guy.
Chardonnay that we actually just bottled the 2020 today, started doing that. So, because I know there's no 750s of this left, so you have to wait till September, unless Wine Club's taking pre-orders, but I don't know, you could ask them.
But Luke, so we have our classic Chardonnay, and then we have our Proprietor's Reserve, which is the top tier of Chardonnay. How do we select out to get to this, and what does this wine represent?
Yeah, so as Andrew mentioned earlier, with the classic we have over about 150 different lots, and we'll go through and basically taste each lot, and then from there we'll pick the best barrels, the best lots for that year, and then we'll actually go in and taste individual barrels. As you see, there's a picture of Richie tasting a barrel. Obviously it must have been 30 degrees in there, he's all rugged up.
Well, it is in the winter. It's a little bit cooler than today.
But yeah, so we'll go through as a group and we'll go through and taste individual lots, individual barrels, and we will pick,
really for us, this is the creme de la creme.
It is. So we're looking for barrels that have the best natural balance. So the right impact of oak that seamlessly integrates with the wine, the highest concentration of fruit flavor, the best acid balance. And you have to remember, when we're fermenting in barrel, and there's a great slide up now, every barrel is its own fermenter, and it spends 9 months in that barrel. And so every barrel is a little bit unique and different depending on the barrel, where it is in the stack, how it was fermented, whether it was on the bottom or the top. And so we're looking for these diamonds in the rough, so to speak.
And it's crazy. I mean, my eyes were really opened when I first started and started tasting through barrels, especially for this process. Is, you see those racks there, and it's 4 barrels on the rack, and it's all the same Cooper toast, but each barrel will present itself a little bit differently. And each one of those little fermenters, sometimes, one barrel Cooper type exactly the same will be completely different because it was on the backside of the row.
There's a photo up right now. This is John Brocco, who actually retired last week after 22 years with Rombauer, stirring one of the barrels in the stack. And
that's one of the big keys is, we hand stir what he's doing right there, hand stir every barrel every week. Post primary fermentation after month 2 to about month 8, we're hand stirring those every week, and it's basically that Golden Gate Bridge thing where you start painting at one end and you start stirring one end of the barrel room, you work your way to the end. By the end of the week, you turn around and come back.
Yeah, pretty much how it works.
It's that endless, turnaround, but it plays a huge importance to what the finished product is.
So maybe for the people at home, could you explain, we have the classic Chardonnay, which is a blend of all these different lots, and we try a representative sample of an individual lot, but with the Proprietor's Reserve, we're looking for perfect barrels. Can you explain the difference for everyone who's watching between what we're looking for in terms of barrel flavor and integration versus the classic Chardonnay, and
Well,
how that barrel selection differs in terms of type and grain and quality.
Well, we're following very similar, winemaking techniques. It's the same winemaking techniques between the two wines. So it's all, Carneros fruit. It's all barrel fermented. And the big key is that when we go to blend the classic Rambert Chardonnay, it's about 150 lots. And that is a representation of basically Carneros that year and the best wine we can make from Carneros. When we go to Prop Reserve, we're choosing what lots for us stand out with the best depth, concentration, length, fruit intensity. And then with that fruit intensity, because we're going to a higher fruit intensity, they generally can withstand a higher new barrel percentage because they complement each other
So
at a
if you
higher
have
rate.
a higher fruit concentration, you
Yep.
can carry more new oak without
Yes.
overpowering the wine.
Yeah, because they can stand up to it. And even certain vineyards lend themselves, certain vineyards in the reserve selection that will go and blend 8 components. Some selections are 10% new oak, some are 100% new oak, and depending on the vineyard and the expression of that wine, we'll find the best barrels that we think represent that wine.
Yeah.
But what we go through is we go through each lot, we pick the best lots, which tend to be about 8-ish, 10
Yeah, 8 to
maybe. And we'll go through every single barrel, and it's an easy yes or no. And if it meets the criteria of us of what we think is
And who
the
has
best,
final say, Andrew?
I do.
Well, apparently it's a democracy.
Us Lucas,
you say you.
No,
no great wine was ever made by committee.
No,
I'll put it that way.
No, certainly. But generally, it's all 3 of us either agree, and if there's one dissenting opinion, it's kicked out.
Yeah.
So it has to be a consensus opinion, basically, and I think through that it's consistent year in, year out on the best representation of Chardonnay. We think not only from Carneros, but that we can make in anywhere.
And could you just walk the people at home through the flavors you see in the wine? Obviously, we know we have like that melon and peach with butter and vanilla and a creamy palate. But how does this wine differ from the classic Chardonnay?
Well, I also get layers of that lemon lime pie.
Yeah.
I'm getting especially grilled peach, like a brioche, that really like fresh baked bread. But the biggest thing for me is that fruit intensity and length on the palate.
Yeah.
And that purity of fruit of how it carries.
The depth of flavor.
The depth and basically just seeing the wine through every level, and every time you go back you see a new flavor. And it's not just the fruit intensity, it's the balance of the oak as well on that wine. And we're looking for a subtle, not overpowering barrel that carries and lifts the fruit and then lengthens it.
It enhances the wine.
It enhances the wine.
And Luke, you had a really good analogy when we were doing our rehearsal about barrels being a spice or like cooking.
Yeah,
seasoning.
seasoning has what is that? The winemaker's spice rack.
Yeah.
So like as one of the tools we saw in the video, they were toasting over the wood fire. We have many toasts. We can go heavy toast. We can go light toast.
We even have
some staves.
we
here.
have
some staves.
heavy toast here, and then we go. I can do this. And
Thank you.
can
What is it? Vanna White. Thank you.
Medium plus.
Yeah, as you can see, so this
And
this
then
allows
medium.
a tool for the winemaker.
And then medium light, and so you can kind of see through all 4. It's a card deck.
Yeah. So when Andrew is tasting the fruit and tasting the wines, we have different barrels, like different spices. So if he's looking to lift the fruit more, he'll pick a lighter toast barrel.
Yeah, and
but if he wants a bit more impact, he'll whack it in a heavier toast barrel.
And a good comparison is seasoning. And like when you go to a restaurant and you have a well-seasoned dish, it just everything hits on every part of your palate. When it's over-seasoned or under-seasoned, that's when you have a wine that doesn't have enough fruit intensity. It's getting heavy toast, and it's just overpowering it. And we're looking for a balance of each.
We had a question come in from a viewer saying, what do we do with the old barrels?
Well,
they kind of go everywhere.
they do. For us, we have internally it's great because we use Chardonnay barrels for 3 years and then
1 year in Zinfandel.
And then 1 year for Zinfandel. So that 4th year, we get a 4th year, and the Zinfandel is our neutral oak for Zinfandel. And then some of them even prolong and live here for about 10 years for Sauvignon Blanc. But after that, they make very lovely planters sometimes,
so we sell
table holders
or furniture.
We've sold old barrels. They tend to go all over the world. So some end up as planters. We sell a lot of our old barrels, which we don't need anymore because we want barrels with flavor to other wineries. We've shipped a lot of barrels to Scotland where they'll go into Scotch whiskey production.
Distilleries
through
around.
Demptoast, we've shipped a lot to Mexico for tequila and mezcal production. The thing with a barrel is it can last forever. So long as you keep it moist, and keep it from drying out so it remains or keeps its integrity. I mean, I've seen barrels over 100 years old in Europe which still hold
I think
liquid or wine.
I think Alsace has a barrel that's like 600 years old.
Exactly,
I mean,
right?
it's-
So,
wow.
but you got to remember, as the barrel gets older, it has less and less flavor.
Yep.
So we always say once they're 4 years old, we call it a neutral barrel. It's not going to impart any barrel flavor on the wine, but it'll impart texture. And so we always have a percentage of new barrels coming through. And yeah, if you need some more barrels, it's a contentious issue around our selling old barrels because it is. It's something that's a little bit challenging, but yeah, they end up all over the place. I've seen
they're
barrels,
60 gallons.
Yeah,
They're
I've
not
seen
small.
barrels in.
Yeah.
We've had an ex-employee end up in Ireland at a whiskey distillery in Ireland, and they were very proud that they had old Rombauer barrels. So
They're all over the world.
I know David wished we did 100% new every year.
I wouldn't mind it, you know, it's okay.
So this particular
squeeze us
wine,
here.
the proprietor Chardonnay, Andrew has done. Obviously, it's a fan favorite if you
Yeah,
love Rombauer
it is,
wines, but
and
it's been reviewed and
Yeah, the
consistently
biggest
reviews
thing-
very, very well.
Yeah, 95 points from Wine Advocate on the 19 vintage,
Yeah.
which you know is a reflection of how.
I was very, very proud of that.
I mean, yeah, and it's honestly 19 whites. Well, 20 whites right now as well because we're blending them and tasting and starting to bottle. But those two vintages back to back for whites are some of my favorite. I think back to back coming up that I've seen.
Yeah. And you might notice with the proprietor Chardonnay, because we are down to the last few remaining bottles of the 19, we have one bottle, but we have magnums. And the size of the bottle has an influence on how the wine ages. So generally, the standard is a 750, and as the bottle gets smaller, the wine ages more quickly. And as the bottle gets larger, the wine ages more slowly. So a magnum is going to develop slower in the bottle than a 750. A double magnum or a triple magnum or imperial or Salamanza or 18 litre is going to age even more slowly.
Crazy bottles.
Crazy big bottles. So
They're
if
party
you're-
bottles.
They're party bottles. But if
Yeah.
you're buying large formats, you generally have a larger window in which to drink them because of how slow they
And a
age.
larger crew to drink them with.
Well,
And they're great for
Magnums, maybe not a large crew, but you need a
Yeah.
large one of these 3 litres for it.
And the 3 liter looks awesome.
It does.
I think everyone's sick of listening to us yak on for now.
I guess
Yeah.
we'd probably talk about Cabernet.
We should probably talk about, even though it's 103 here in the cellar, we should probably talk about
Nothing
Cabernet.
says Cabernet
So
like
everybody
super high temperatures.
finish off your Chardonnay.
But one of the things, I go all around the valley, and I spend time working with wineries all over Napa and Sonoma, and one thing that you guys are doing here at Rombauer is you use the barrels a little bit different during the kind of initial fermentation process, correct?
We do, yes.
So what is the process? What do you guys like to do here?
Well, we like to get the barrels delivered from Demtos when they come in for red wine without a head. And Luke, you can probably talk about this a little bit more,
Without
in
a
more
head.
depth of why we
Yes.
want this part of the barrel, the head off when they arrive.
Well, that's right. Thanks, Richie. So basically when the fruit comes in, the red fruit comes in, we basically destem it, and then from there it goes to optical sorter. As you see, there's berries on the screen, but there's also some leaves and some pink berries that are unripe. And what happens is a high-speed camera takes a photo of those berries and then decides, we tell it we want to keep those nice dark ripe berries, but kick out the pink and all the green stems and stuff. And what that leaves us with ripe whole berries. And then as you see, we go into whole barrels. And as you see, they don't have a head because it will make it very hard to fill. But no, so what we're trained cellar guys, have been doing it for about 10 years now.
They spend a lot of time out at Demtos learning how to do this.
They
Pop the
have,
heads
they-
off.
Those must be Demtos barrels.
Yeah, they pop their hoops off and then take the head off, and then we fill them up 3/4 full. And then we put the head back on, and here's the guys, looks like Elias putting the hoops back on, and then we'll transfer it into our barrel fermentation room. So traditionally in a tank, we'll use a pump to mix the juice over to extract the
Beautiful
color,
Demtos barrel right there.
extract the color and tannin out of the barrels. But here we got Evan, a good big South African, that will actually go through and spin the barrels for us. And the reason we put it into the barrel is not just to get South Africans to get some exercise, it's actually because it makes better wine and adds a greater richness, texture and weight on the palate. And something else, but I can't remember.
It highlights the best parts of what a barrel can add to a wine.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
It really shows off how much texture and depth that oak can impart on fruit. and it's an incredible tool to use. It requires a lot of hard work. You know, those South Africans don't come off Amazon.
And David, obviously we're one of your best customers. We buy a lot of barrels from you. How many people ask for custom barrels with the head off for doing barrel fermentation?
It's pretty rare. I mean, I maybe have 4 or 5 wineries out of the 400 or 500 that are here in Napa Valley that are taking the heads off, and mainly because it's a lot of work. Your guys are literally having to touch that wine, you know, dozens of times more than you otherwise would during harvest. So I think, you know, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, when you taste the wines, you know, you get that beautiful elegance, and you know, the fermenting in oak helps stabilize color, and it really brings a lot more to the wine than simply just oak impact. It's one of those things that, you know, in winemaking we know a lot about winemaking, but there's just certain things that are just, you can't really understand exactly how it all comes together. But
the X factor.
Just something about it really makes the wine stand out, and it brings a little bit more beauty to that Cabernet.
Yeah, and so this is the 2018 Napa Cab we're drinking. It sees about 60% new oak barrels and 40% seasoned barrels. About half of it is fermented in oak barrels entirely, and the rest is fermented in tank and then aged in oak. So I mean, if you have a bottle at home and you have popped the cork and you were enjoying it, Andrew,
in the AC of your room.
In your AC, yeah, it's not 103 like it is here. But I mean, the first thing that's apparent is it has this bright cassis, black currant. There's going to be a bit of spicy oak. It borders on that like fresh brioche, almost slightly vanilla, but it's very
almost
seamless.
like, if you close your eyes, like a fresh baked cookie.
A fresh baked cookie, yeah.
That's probably the easiest. Like chocolate, mocha, a fresh cookie bake with like having a jar of cassis, like, I don't know, creme de cassis on the side. I mean, it's very lifted right now. 18s are so open.
The 18s are very fleshy.
Yeah. And they're you know, it's only what, 3 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, not even. It's bottled a year ago, and it's amazing how aromatic and expressive it is.
And on the palate,
it's actually interesting. The barrel ferment program came about. We'd at Rombauer we'd played around with fermenting in like large oak puncheons, which are 500 liters. This is a brick, which is 225. And we'd basically use it like an open top fermenter, and we'd plunge it by hand, and then when it was done, we'd press it off, and then we'd put it in a small oak barrel for aging. And we got nice flavor. It made a different wine, but it didn't make a better wine. And I'd seen this technique used at a couple of small wineries in Napa Valley where they popped their heads, 3/4 filled them with fruit, and they said it made a great wine. So I decided, well, I'm going to buy some of those barrels and the special racks to roll them. So I did that, and I get a call from the late Kerner Rombauer. It was 2010, and this was would have been about July, and Kerner calls me and he's furious. These were very expensive barrels. The racks were very expensive. He couldn't understand what we were doing. Very colorful language to express that I'd spent too much money. And he hung up the phone, and I didn't hear from him for 2 days. So 2010 came along, very late vintage, very compressed. We picked 60% of our red wine in about 4 days, and it was crushed out here. We actually filled those oak trial barrels for barrel fermentation about 2 a.m. in the morning, and put them in the barrel room, made the wine, tasted fantastic, drained it off, went back in the same barrels in which it was fermented like we still do, and we sort of forgot about it. In November, we were up in my office tasting through wines, and we were doing some filming for a video, and Kerner's in my office. So of course, when your boss is there, you break out all the good wines, right? So I'm tasting through all these Cabernets, and out comes, we get to like the bracket of Stice Lane, which is one of our premier Cabernet vineyards that we make a single vineyard Cabernet from, right here in St. Helena. And Kerner tries this one like sample from Stice Lane. He goes, "What's this?" And I said, "Well, that's Stice." Kerner goes, "No, but what did you do to it?" And I'm like, "Aha, gotcha." I'm like, "That's the barrel ferment trial." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Remember earlier in the year you called me and you were yelling at me and telling me that I'd spent too much money?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Well, do you like it?" And he goes, "It's amazing." I go, "Great." And he goes, "Well, you should do all the Cabernet that way." And so it literally went from a 10-barrel trial in 1 year to 150 barrels the next year, to 300 barrels, to several hundred barrels now. And we do as much of our Cabernet as we can as a barrel ferment, and a significant portion of Merlot. So just thank you, Kerner, up there in the sky. Appreciate it.
It shows in the wine more on the palate, especially.
Well, it's a seamless integration on the palate. But David, to cut back to you, I know you've been at the Cooperage a while, but you don't only work at Demptos, you have a side hustle, I'll call it. You're an accomplished musician, but you do something else, which is I'd like to talk about now.
Yeah, sure. About 15 years ago or so, I started building guitars, acoustic guitars.
Yep.
And so it's something I did an apprenticeship when I was a senior in high school with a wonderful man by the name of Terry Sheffer, and he taught me the full process, and over the course of about a year, I built my first guitar.
15 years ago.
15 years ago, yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. Time flies.
So you work for a Cooperage who makes barrels from wood, but on the side, you build a guitar.
Apparently I have a type. I don't know. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, it's one of those things that over the years I've continued to build and now sell my guitars to musicians all around California, and get to enjoy that passion along with wine. And you know, music and wine go together perfectly. So
they do.
It really works out well.
So we're buying. When it comes to French oak, we're buying French oak barrels, which are made from Quercus sicilius, and when it's American oak, it's Quercus alba. But you're not using oak for making a guitar, are you?
Typically, no. Woods that are most commonly used for guitar would be like rosewoods or Honduran mahogany. Maple is actually quite common as well. Ovangle. There's a lot of wonderful woods out there, and every one of those woods, just like different barrels from different sources, or I should say different oak from different sources, will give you different flavors in the wine. I can use different types of wood to give me different kind of quote-unquote flavors for my guitars.
So the type of wood has an impact on the sound. So
absolutely, yeah.
Like what do you see? So what wood would give you like a deeper, richer sounding guitar versus a wood that's going to give you a sharper, crisper sound?
Absolutely, yeah. It all boils down to the density, the hardness of the wood. So if I'm looking for warmth and depth, I'm looking for something like a mahogany, or maybe if you've been to Hawaii, koa is a very common wood.
I'll be there in 2 weeks.
Yeah, lucky man.
For work, I promise.
But you know, if I'm looking for a guitar that I want to really project and have a lot more kind of vibrance and resonance, I want a little bit of a harder wood, something along the lines of Indian rosewood or cocobolo, or something that's going to give me a lot more reflections of those sound waves in the body of the guitar.
And does the shape and size of a guitar have a big impact on the sound?
Absolutely, and I kind of just like a speaker in your house. Bigger speakers have a wider frequency range, and same with the guitar. The bigger the body of the guitar, you've got more vibrational area, and so something like a large body guitar, like what you typically think is called a dreadnought, like that. Think of that classic country western guitar. That guitar is going to be strummed a lot, and so when you're strumming, you're creating a lot of sound. And so the bigger body allows for more separation of those notes while they're being strummed.
Yeah.
So you can kind of overdrive a guitar, like an acoustic guitar can be overdriven just like a speaker can be overdriven. When I'm building these guitars, I talk to the future owner, what style of music do you play? What do you like? What do you want out of this guitar?
It's like talking to a winemaker then. So a winemaker wants a certain thing from a barrel.
Exactly.
The size
Only
of the
they know
barrel,
what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
All impact the flavor. So not only do you have to think like a winemaker, which I don't know how you do it because they're all crazy. But then you have to think like an artist, which is a musician, to try and match the guitar to the type of music they're making, like you'd match a barrel to a winemaker's wine.
Exactly, and it's a lot of fun. Over the course of 15 years, you can imagine I've made a lot of mistakes. You kind of
winemakers don't make mistakes.
Yeah, of course, never. But trial and error, and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and over the course of time, you kind of refine what you're looking for. Things like when I'm making the top of the guitar, like there's bracing underneath the top of the guitar, and I will actually take away portions of the bracing to create a resonance that I'm looking for. Yeah. And it's just simply sitting there and tapping on the wood and trying to get a certain frequency and resonance that I'm looking for.
So what would you use, like a deeper, richer sound? What would you use for that, and what kind of music would that guitar be best suited to?
For deeper, richer, I would say something like Honduran mahogany for the back and sides, and then maybe either Engelmann spruce or possibly cedar would be really beautiful for the top. Yeah. Because it gets more complex. We've got the backwoods and the top woods are going to create different frequency responses.
Stave wood and headwood, toasted, untoasted heads. Yeah.
Exactly. The parallels are quite amazing, to be honest. And so, if I'm looking for that deeper, richer style of guitar, like I said, you want, a little bit of a softer wood like a mahogany, and you want, that spruce on top, or maybe, like I said, that cedar will give a lot of that depth and that warmth without becoming shrill that you might see.
That's like an American oak barrel that we'd use in Zinfandel. It has that richness and that depth and concentration.
Yeah, and you'd want maybe a larger body guitar that can handle that kind of density of sound a lot better than, say, a small body, which is going to overdrive, as I was saying before.
So if I wanted a guitar that's going to be like crisper and sharper and have a more, I don't want to say precise sound, but like we would be looking for a barrel for like a cooler block of,
like a higher
cooler climate
acid.
Chardonnay, higher acid. We want a barrel that's really linear and focused. What would you use for that, and how would you make that guitar?
Well, I would look at really intensely dense and hardwood. So like Indian rosewood, like I said, is a great wood for that. Cocobolo is a personal favorite of mine. It's found down in parts of southern Mexico and Costa Rica. Shout out to my wife, Costa Rica. But it's a very, very dense wood that then allows for a much more intense attack. As you pluck the string, the wood is much more efficient at transmitting the sound out and hitting and creating a little bit more volume and more resonance. Make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, and
That makes complete sense. And when obviously we season wood for making barrels, and we're very specific at Romba about how we want that wood seasoned.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you season wood or dry it for making a guitar.
Absolutely, yeah.
And does a guitar change with age? Like, does a new guitar sound different to like a 30-year-old guitar?
Yeah. It's amazing. Some of the guitars built in the 1940s and 50s are going for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars because people want that aged sound.
Can you describe that for me? Like, I don't know what an aged barrel tastes like. I have no idea what an aged guitar sounds like.
Yeah, so kind of to get more, kind of a little bit more in depth. Wood has resin, it has sap. If you ever climbed a tree, you've got sap on your hands, and so when you cut down the tree, you then take that wood, you put it into a kiln. You want to dry it down to a certain level so it's stable, and then over the course of years, that sap will actually continue to harden. And as it hardens, you get actually better resonance and better, basically, transmission of energy.
Yeah.
The strings, when you pluck the string, there's energy going from the string into the body of the guitar, and so the guitar becomes more efficient at transmitting that energy into sound.
So the guitars you first made versus the guitars you're making now, which do you prefer? Because obviously, like over 15 years, you've gotten better at it, right? Whereas you have this like older guitar, which is going to have a deeper, richer, better resonance to it.
You're asking me to pick my favorite child.
You just can't.
That's not fair.
Everybody does this to me. They go, "What's your favorite wine?"
Yeah,
I'm like,
absolutely.
come on, this is impossible.
I like whatever wine's in my glass.
Exactly.
There we go.
So you like whatever guitar's
Whatever's in front of you.
Yeah, whatever guitar I'm playing happens to be my favorite guitar.
You've got one of your guitars here. Alex, if you can bring that over for David.
Yeah, let's get.
David, what is this guitar? When was it built?
Let's see if
Walk us through it.
See, so this here is it's made of sapel, which is actually a type of mahogany. It's actually from Africa. This particular version is very figured, so it's pretty, if you can see the way the light kind of shines off of it. This is what's called a 0028, so it's based off of, if you've ever heard of Martin Guitars, they're a pretty famous guitar company based in Pennsylvania. And so you can see smaller body. This is mahogany, so as we talked about before, it's going to give a little bit of a richer sound. This particular guitar is made more for finger picking because of the smaller body. As I said, it's going to have much more of an attack on the string, and it's not going to have as much resonance. So smaller body, darker wood gives you a really nice clear note when you are playing fingerstyle guitar.
Well,
so you can build it.
Can
you play it?
I think I might be able to.
I think
so. Being an accomplished musician, David, you're going to play an original song for us.
As I always say, I think my music goes best with a glass of Rombauer Chardonnay. Is that
perfect?
Appropriate?
Let's do it.
Or Cabernet works too. You guys go ahead.
I better get some Chardonnay too.
This particular song is called "Bottle of Wine," appropriately. So.
She's a good night kiss that lingers till the morning. She's a broken heart that comes along without warning. She's a bottle of wine on the back porch seeing stars. She's a bridge to nowhere, just a trouble on my heart. She's everything, oh, but nothing from the start. Moving in and it's right then that all these questions, they fall apart. Cause every time I think of her, it's magic. And never seem to get her off my mind. It's just a simple way of telling me that life can be so right. She's my bottle of wine. She's my bottle of wine. She's a good night kiss that lingers till the morning. She's a broken heart that comes along without warning. She's a bottle of wine on the back porch seeing stars.
David, that
Thank
was
you.
awesome. Thank you.
If there's not a magic guitar that make me play.
Say, I'm not guitar hero.
That's me.
Well, guys, that just about wraps us for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next month on July 22nd. Yes, Thursday, July 22nd at 5 p.m. Pacific time.
Where are you going?
We'll actually be taking Rombauer Hour on the road. We're going to go out to Colorado for a new culinary edition. One of the most popular shows we did last year is with Dan Furr, one of our regional sales managers, and his wife Diane, who is a chef.
Oh, they're going to make you lamb out there.
Dan, we want some lamb. So we're
Yeah.
going to be flying out to
Make it
Colorado. Me, myself, and I, the three of us, and we will have a great show then. So if you want to see the culinary edition, we'll be back next month with that. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. David, thank you for
Thank you, David.
Let's get some
joining
boogies.
us. Cheers, and we will see you on July 22nd. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Boogie boogie.
Boogie boogie.